Hello, project managers. Welcome to this episode of My Project Hell. I'm Kelly Schockler, and for the next 20 minutes, we're going to go on a short journey into the project management zone to a place where we're going to do our part to keep things understandable and practical and hopefully give you something useful to take away and apply to your real life projects.
And I'm Paul Thompson here with Kelly. And in this episode, we're going to discuss a hot topic. Then we're going to work with a project manager in Coach's Corner, see if we can't coach her up and get her out of her project hell. One of the things I love about this is it can be interactive. So I encourage everybody on here live, add to the conversation in the chat, right? Share your thoughts and ideas. If you have any questions specifically for Kelly or I, throw those in Q&A. And if we do have time, we'd love to give you some answers to those. So Kelly, now that we kind of got everything warmed up, what's our hot topic?
Well, before we get to that, I just want to say, hey, thank you to those of you who are attending live. We really appreciate you being here. So just wanted to say that. Yeah, it is. It's nice when we have a bunch of project manager aficionados joining us. So thank you for being here. So yeah, our hot topic for this episode, we're calling it the lowdown project budget blues. Oh, okay. Paul's going to do air guitar and lip syncing. I love it. So I'm going to share something and it'll have a 4-letter word in it. I hate this part of project management. Hates the 4-letter word. And it's partially because usually the project budget process is made overly complicated by organizations and their internal accounting methods. And also the thing that I dislike greatly is that it turns into this shell game with numbers. You know what I mean, Paul, where we start out with a number at the beginning and then maybe we'll add some contingency, which is okay, but then leadership just keeps inflating contingency to expand with scope, or maybe they take money out and they expand scope, right? And so most of the organizations that I've been in for project management in my career, they've been lacking budget tracking maturity. And it still blows my mind. They're not tracking any project costs at all, let alone, project resource time, because that's a notch up in the maturity scale, I think, when an org does that. But it's the 21st century. I thought more companies would be being mindful about this, but they aren't. And so, what's your experience been?
Yeah, this does not seem to be a strong area for many companies. In fact, I'll give you an example. So called in to rescue a project that had been going on for a number of years. Hadn't really gotten anything done. So brought the team in, start tearing through the budget because they told me, there's plenty of money to get this thing done. So it turned out where they started with $8 million, thought they had 4. After 3 weeks of digging and tearing through things, they had a big goose egg. There was less than a couple $100K left in the budget.
Wow.
So $8 million and a couple of years later with 0 to show for it. That's some pretty poor management. So it is important that people pay attention to this because these are more than rounding errors. So I don't think, though, everybody has to have an accounting degree to do this.
No,
right?
no.
What they need to think about are just what are the costs for your project when you're estimating it. And hopefully you're given what went into the budget. Oftentimes you're given, you got $100,000 in 3 months to get this done. So go back and figure out, right? What is your cost for materials? What's your labor cost? What are your shipping costs? All those things. Whatever your project may be, right? Replumbing the floor, how much is piping going to cost you? But lay it out and break it out so that you can kind of go from the bottom up to get back to your number. Because more often than not, you'll find that if you were given just a big chunk of number, it was pulled out of the air.
Well, and I think too, go ahead.
No.
I was thinking, even if you're in an organization where they're not caring or seemingly caring, that as best practice as a solid project manager, have something, create something in something as simple as Excel, and you can keep it simple, but you know, maybe the bar's low there and you can come up and show up at a little bit higher above the bar and build your street cred by having a little budget.
Right. A one-eyed woman is king in the land of the blind, right? So, and speaking of which, so out on our website under the Learning Library, if you guys do want them, download one of the packets. I usually think that we throw in kind of a little budget estimator in there, and it just has a lot of line items, right? You have to come up with the numbers. We've got no idea, but they're brain teasers. And as Kelly said, worst comes to worst, just track all of your purchases. Keep track of your POs, what they went for. Probably don't need to then get so detailed as far as is it OPEX, CAPEX, things like that. It's going to depend on your organization, but do, as Kelly said, do something, please. We've got to raise this capability in everyone.
Definitely.
So as Kelly said, you know, yeah, it's not the glamour part of the job. Oftentimes, you know, you got to struggle, but do something, track and minimally track it and keep going until you've got your budget, you know, at the end down to zero, hopefully not less. All right.
What do we got for Coach's Corner?
Brings us to Coach's Corner, which, you know, Kelly and I love. Right. This is our favorite part. And we love it when the project managers can join us. Sometimes they can't, and this is one of them.
Seems like they can't quite frequently because their jobs are more important than my project hell, I think.
Well, yeah, sure. 11 o'clock on a Thursday. But Scott did send us his issue, and he wants to follow up with it on our YouTube channel. So I'm going to read it so we got a real clear thing.
Bring
so
it.
This is Scott, right? I work at an outdoor clothing retailer, and he's in their IT department as a project manager. Recently, I was given a project where I need to implement a new internal process for requesting IT services. The new process will integrate a bunch of siloed tasks across the department, allowing one request to be used, and that way it's going to speed up things. He says, though, the problem is that in the past, certain groups have been very resistant to new ways of doing work. Can't imagine that, even when it benefits them or the organization or the customer. How do I get buy-in on the implementation of a new process? Kelly, what do you think?
So I'm hearing concerns over adoption and resistance, which is all change management strategy. And another big thing that is often lacking in project management and project managers doing some little semblance of change management. To me, it's almost one of the first things you do after you get the lay of the land and figure out which end is up. But I mean, you've got to identify your key stakeholders and your stakeholder groups who are going to be impacted by the implementation of your new process. And that, when you're doing your interviews and you're talking to these people, you're going to start hearing where the fears are, right? You're going to hear what matters to them most and the negative impacts that they're dreaming up, or maybe they've heard about out there on the street, right? In the office, and how that's going to impact them negatively. So I would say figure out what those fears are and talk to them and create a what's in it for them strategy. We call that WIIFM, what's in it for me, right? To help bring that out into the light. What are the meaningful benefits that they're going to experience in your process? Really figure out what those are and how's it going to make their life better? And then use that as the basis of your conversations. Maybe you do some surveys to find this out, which is one of Paul's favorite methods of gathering information. He loves surveys. But whatever activities that you're going to do to onboard them into this new process, you've got to start with that. What's in it for them? At least that's how I see it. You see it a different way, Paul?
No, that's a good point. And I think too, when you're talking with people, right, you're going to hear their fears, their concerns. Also listen for who are the influencers in the organization, who are the followers, right? There's always that chunk that can lead. There's that chunk that, yeah, they're not going to follow no matter what. But then there's that big chunk in the middle that is looking for leadership to tell them how to feel and behave about things. And those are the ones you can kind of help get through the change. And I love the WIIFM. I mean, to me, that's the only reason anybody does any kind of change, except
we're
for
all egocentric at the end of the day.
it really is, right? What are my beer and cigarettes that motivate me? That's kind of where it comes down to. So I'll give you some practical advice for kind of getting people behind you. I've tried this before. It works when you've got a good group that you can pull on. Look to your marketing department, right? Bring it to them as an opportunity for them to showcase their skill and capabilities internally. You know, you're kind of having to whiff them, right? But you're selling them on the idea of help me market this change to all the staff so that it goes good. And they're going to be looking at it from a whole different perspective than just a project that you're managing, right? They're looking at it from what are the communications internally that need to happen, how often, how they're going to push you, right? They're going to ask you what is in it for them. And they're going to not like your first 3 responses. So they're going to keep having you dig and dig. But that's their job, and that's what they're really good at. So bring them in, let them help you. Excuse me. So if you can pull that off, it can be a great way to get things moving forward. And
yeah, I like that idea. I like one of our attendees. You want to read that question?
Yeah, what if the marketing department doesn't want to change either? You know?
Well, then there's a problem.
Yeah, no, but more often than not, it really can be one of those things that you've got internal support, because this gets back to who's the leaders, who are the change agents in your organization.
Yeah, I have a story too for Scott and our audience about having your boundaries about what's in your control.
Oh, yeah.
So when I was on a project had big change management, they were getting a new operation system for a group of end users who were very traditional and older, and translate that into not as tech savvy as usual, and they did not want this new system at all. And I was actually in training sessions where users got up, said some beautiful, colorful language, and walked out, and they were not going to adopt it, right? And there's a line where you cannot help them, right? Your leadership really has to do this in partnership with you, depending on the level of resistance and how much you want this adopted. You know, pull them in, pull leadership in. Hopefully you've got a sponsor or someone like a sponsor in your project life that can help you.
And you know, just to dogpile on that, right? One of the things we like to do early on when we're kind of doing that pre-kickoff discussion with our project sponsors is kind of set one of the goals or the responsibilities of the project owner or the governance team, right? Their job is to amplify your message, right? Because as Kelly said, these are the people that are in leadership positions. So they need to be getting their peers on board, right? If you're dealing with the C-suite that Kelly often has to with projects that she's got going, she might be reporting up to the CTO who needs to bring on the CFO and the CIO and bring all those people in on the movement, the change that they're trying to get. So it goes back down into all the rest of the organization. So pull them in and make sure they understand a big role they have is amplifying your message.
Yeah. So Scott, hopefully those are some useful takeaways for you. You know, think about the change management aspect of this with adoption and resistance, and find out what matters to them and what they're afraid of is upsetting to them, and then incorporate that into how you approach them. Try to partner with your marketing department. I love that, Paul. That's a great idea. Wouldn't it be great if we had a dedicated marketing partner that helped us with change management? And then, yeah, know where your boundaries are. got to have them. What's not in your control, and loop in your leadership. So that's what we have on Coach's Corner. And wow, I
There's
think we might
time.
have time for the very elusive question, Q&A. Katie, you come back to us and let us know if there's a question we can pick up.
Yes, we do have one question. It was submitted anonymously, but this person says, I have an analyst on my project team who's ghosted me. I've tried several times to reach out, and once in a while he responds and tells me he'll have his work done on time, but so far I haven't seen it. Others on the team are being held up on their work because what they're doing is dependent on his work. I want to go to his manager, but I also want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Any advice?
I think ghosting's at an all-time high these days. Am I imagining that?
I think we've just finally
I don't
put
know.
some words to what used to always bother us, right?
Yeah, I think it's just easier. It might be easier to see it now where we're all, a lot of us are remote. But I mean, what do you, what's your 2 cents on this, Paul?
Well, it's never any good, right? Never any fun to have somebody, not answer your emails, right? You sent emails over and over, nothing's coming back, throw out a chat, whatever it is. And it's hard, especially hard when you are remote, right? Because
Yeah.
it would always be go sit on their desk and wait for them to come. And then you go, are you done yet? How about now? And I will be back in 20 minutes to check on you. But you do want to be mindful that they've got a lot of work. They're trying to do something. You do need to reach out, and you probably need to find what works for them, because I've had people that won't return phone calls, but they'll pick up a text like that.
That's
or vice versa, right? You got to find what it is that reaches to them. But really, when you exhaust everything, yeah, it's their boss's job. So it's not like you're tattling. It's, this is what I've tried. It's not working. How do you recommend I engage with Sally, with Sam, with Peter, whoever it is, and see if you can get some guidance there. And if it doesn't work still, you got to keep coming back and going, we're going to be late because of this. You got to throw them under the bus at some point if they're truly ghosting you.
Ouch. Yeah. Here. Let me help you. No, but it's true. You've got to have an escalation process. And I think the only thing I'd add to that is at the beginning, always assume positive intent. You don't know what that person's dealing with. You have no idea. It might look like a certain thing, and it turns out often to be entirely other. And that's where you just say, hey, what do you need from me to help you do this? Right. And then when you've exhausted, that, it's time to escalate. Don't hesitate and don't wait too long, because then that just can make things so much worse.
Great. Right. And so since we have a few minutes, Kelly, have you run into it where the reason they're not responding is because their boss is overtaxing them, and it's kind of like their boss is the problem? What do we do then?
Oh, if their boss is the problem? Yeah, that's a great question. I think that when it's visibility and transparency with your greater governance, if the resource manager is not willing to help, then, you engage your sponsor for sure. Try to do it on the background. But if you can't get any traction there, then, hey, this is a risk.
Yep. Yeah, definitely keep your RAID log updated and be sure that that's visible, because it's the only way you can be careful, right? Make sure everybody sees it. All right. Well, it looks like Katie's telling us that we have exhausted our time. So
that's her subtle cue right there.
That's right. So we will wrap up this episode of My Project Hell. I hope everybody did have fun. And, Kelly and I do have a great deal of fun doing this with you guys. So really appreciate you showing up. You can catch the replays, and Scott, be sure to watch over on My Project Hell on YouTube. We have that on our channel. You can also check out our website for more information. And please, if you have further questions or you want to get some advice kind of offline, schedule some follow-up free consulting time with Kelly or myself, and we're happy to contribute 30 minutes to solving your problem.
Yeah, and before we say farewell, we just have one deliverable for you, and that is to go tell your project management friends about My Project Hell. And more importantly, we love to have our Coaches Corner pipeline full of project managers with their hellish issues. So send them our way. myprojecthell@gmail.com is our email address. And next time we're going to kick around the hot topic of it's a small world after all. And we will have another intrepid PM in our Coaches Corner. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Have fun all.